If a computer told you that nuclear war had just begun, would you trust it? On September the 26th, 1983, a Soviet warning system reported something impossible: an American nuclear strike. Then another, and another. 5 missiles in total. Inside a secret bunker near Moscow, alarms screamed across giant screens. Military officers stared at the data. Protocol was clear. Report the attack. Alert the Kremlin. Prepare retaliation. But there was a problem. No one knew if the warning was real. For several terrifying minutes, the fate of humanity rested on a single decision. A decision made by a man most people have never heard of. And if he had chosen differently, you might not be watching this video today. By 1983, the Cold War had become a machine powered by fear. The United States and the Soviet Union possessed enough nuclear weapons to destroy civilization many times over. Both sides knew it. Both sides expected the worst. Every radar station, every satellite, every military exercise, everything was interpreted through the lens of possible war. And tensions were rising. Just weeks before, Soviet forces had shot down Korean Airlines Flight 007. 269 civilians were killed. The world condemned Moscow. Moscow feared retaliation. Inside the Kremlin, many leaders had become convinced that the United States was preparing for confrontation. Trust was disappearing. Paranoia was growing. And somewhere above the Earth, new Soviet satellites were watching the skies, waiting for the first sign of an American nuclear launch. Just after midnight on September 26th, the warning appeared. A bright red message flashed across the screen. Launch detected. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the alarms began. The system reported that an American intercontinental ballistic missile had been launched. Seconds later, a second missile appeared. Then a third. Then a fourth. Then a fifth. The computers showed absolute confidence. The attack was real. At least according to the machines. Inside the command center, years of training suddenly became reality. Every officer knew what happened next. The information would be passed up the chain of command. Military leaders would evaluate the threat. Retaliation plans could begin. And once that process started, there might be no way to stop it. Standing in the center of the room was Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov. His responsibility was simple: determine whether the warning was genuine and report it immediately. The alarms continued to sound. The screens continued to flash. Everything suggested an American attack. But Petrov hesitated. something about the situation felt wrong. If the United States truly wanted to eliminate the Soviet Union, why launch only 5 missiles? A real first strike would likely involve hundreds, perhaps thousands. Yet the computers insisted 5 missiles. Incoming. The room grew quieter. Officers waited. The pressure became unbearable. Petrov understood the stakes. If he ignored a real attack, his country could be destroyed. If he reported a false one, he might help trigger a nuclear war. For several moments, the fate of humanity rested on instinct. Not technology, not politics. Instinct. Finally, Petrov made his choice. He reported the warning as a false alarm. No certainty, no evidence, only judgment. Then came the waiting. Minutes passed. No impacts, no explosions, no mushroom clouds on the horizon. Nothing. The missiles never arrived because they had never existed. An investigation later revealed the truth. Sunlight reflecting from high-altitude clouds had confused the satellite system. The computers interpreted the reflections as missile launches. One of the most advanced warning networks on Earth had been fooled by light. The machines were wrong. One man was right. For years, almost nobody knew his name. There were no celebrations, no medals, no headlines. Yet history may have turned because one officer dared to question a machine. And perhaps that is the lesson. Civilizations often imagine that they are protected by technology. But on one night in 1983, humanity survived because a single man trusted his own judgment more than the screen in front of him. 5 missiles, one decision, and a world that never knew how close it came.